Welcome to the Fate of Ukraine channel. Putin cancelled all visits because anti-Kremlin groups on Russian soil started to attack the region. It became clear once again that the Kremlin could not protect Russian lands. Anti-Kremlin groups called on all Russian people to rise up against Putin. After these calls, explosion sounds were also heard at the military base in Crimea. Big turmoil is officially on Russian soil. Russian Volunteer Corps officially claimed responsibility for the attacks on the Bryansk and Kursk regions. Then the Russian Volunteer Corps called on the Russians to rise up against Putin. It is also known that the Corps, which is currently calling for an uprising, consists of at least 40,000 people. Officials of the Bryansk and Kursk regions on the Russian-Ukrainian border reported that gunfire and clashes took place in many settlements along the border. Bryansk Region Governor Alexander Bogomaz also said that a sabotage and reconnaissance group had entered the region. In addition, Russian authorities announced that a drone attack was carried out in the Klimovsky district, as a result of which a residential building in the village of Sushani caught fire. Officially, a major conflict took place on Russian soil. The Russian army arrived in the region. The bombing of the village of Tetkino in the Kursk region was reported by the regional governor Roman Starovoyt. According to the governor, the attacks were quite violent. At the same time, Russian media outlets reported that sabotage and reconnaissance groups simultaneously entered two villages in the Bryansk region. It is also stated by local sources that saboteur groups clashed with the Russian National Guard. After the attacks, the Russian Volunteer Corps claimed responsibility for the attacks. The spokesperson of the Russian Volunteer Corps stated that they came to the Bryansk region to show that the free Russian people can fight against the regime. So in summary, the Russian people officially clashed with their army. According to the Russian news source Agentstvo, Denis, who had previously appeared as the commander of the Russian volunteer troops in press conferences and interviews, took part in the fighting under the code name Rex. Mikhailo Podolyak, an advisor to the head of the presidential administration of Ukraine, described the story about the entry of the Ukrainian sabotage group into Russia as a classic provocation. Perhaps the Russians are starting to wake up, realize something and take some concrete measures, said Andrei Yusov, representative of the Ukrainian Military Intelligence Directorate. The Russian Volunteer Corps is a unit of Russian volunteers who have fought on the Ukrainian side since 2014. It was founded last August. Many veterans of Azov and other units joined the ranks of this corps. Volunteer Corps, part of the International Legion. Also, the second unit of this group is known as Liberation of the Russian Legion. After the attacks, Putin cancelled all his programs and summoned the heads of special forces and intelligence units to the Kremlin Palace. Russia's Federal Security Service also announced that more measures will be taken to neutralize the sabotage group that violated the border in the Bryansk region. After the attacks of the Russian Volunteer Corps, which knew that this would happen, it was revealed that a large number of traps were prepared with various types of explosive materials. Military analysts stated that Russian saboteurs, who have very advanced knowledge of the war, are one step ahead of even the army. These groups became the new scourge of the Russian army. Former war veterans are now using their years of experience to overthrow the Putin regime. Russian officials also stated that the saboteur group, who knew that the Russian army would come to the region, prepared very dangerous booby traps. According to the information given by the Russian Federal Security Service, the region is currently under control and investigation. However, a large number of various types of explosives were found and demoning continues. How exactly the sabotage group was able to freely enter the territory of the Bryansk region has not yet been resolved. However, Russian intelligence explained that there is a high risk of repetition of similar situations in other parts of Russia, especially in the regions bordering Ukraine. On the other hand, it turned out that the Russian side lost the biggest tank battle of the war. The Russian army lost a major tank battle in the Volodar region due to an ambush. In the long-running war, tank troops from both sides faced off in the Volodar area. Local news sources stated that it took at least 2 days for the exploding tanks to even count. Advancing in a single column, the Russian armored convoy was ambushed by the Ukrainian army. Local news sources confirmed that at least 150 battleships were hit after heavy clashes. So many Russian armored vehicles could actually control the Volodar area. But even a successful defensive operation of the Ukrainian army stopped all Russian attacks. Hundreds of bird tanks and armored vehicles were detected by drones in a large field. Ukrainian artillery systems had hit the whole field. The field was also completely riddled with holes. There have been so many explosions in the field area that local sources state that it did not stay in a proper area. A soldier defending Ukraine's Volodar region also stated that they will continue to defend the region no matter what. With the Russian volunteer army starting a big uprising, big explosions took place in the Crimea region. 2 drones also found an attack on a Russian military base in the Sakei district of Crimea. Russian Telegram channel Baza also confirmed that 2 unidentified drones had attacked. The air defense system or warfare system at the military base was able to stop a UAV before it attacked. However, the other UAV targeted the structure at the Russian base. A huge explosion occurred as a result of the attack. After Russian leader Putin suspended the New START, the last ongoing disarmament agreement with the West, the US dispatched the Doomsday aircraft with the technology to command nuclear weapons to Iceland. After Russia's decision to unilaterally suspend the New START agreement with the USA, which envisages the inspection of nuclear weapons in the shadow of the Ukraine war, Washington, which made a counter-move, sent the Doomsday plane, which was used as a command center flying in the nuclear war, to Europe. This step of the Joe Biden administration was considered by military experts as a move by the Washington administration to counter the Russian threat of nuclear conflict. The U.S. Department of Defense has announced that one of its 16 Doomsday planes has landed at one of the military airports in Iceland. In the written statement made by the American command in Europe, the expression E-6B Mercury, known as the Doomsday aircraft, were sent to Iceland to operate in America's responsibility region in Europe. Although the E-6B Mercury aircraft, produced by the American Boeing Company and designed based on the Boeing 707 passenger plane, carries only anti-aircraft systems as a weapon, it has strategic importance in a possible nuclear war. Thanks to a series of observation and communication devices on the aircraft, it is ensured that the USA stays in constant contact with all strategic and tactical military units on land, in the air and at sea. The systems on the aircraft also have the ability to fire even intercontinental missiles deployed on land with a remote command. Managed by 17 military operators with a crew of 5, the aircraft is in constant contact with the Pentagon. The E-6B Mercury-type aircraft, which was sent to Europe, was produced in the 2000s and started its duty. The 4-engine aircraft, which has a takeoff capacity of 155 tons, has a range of approximately 12,000 kilometers. If the aircraft is refueled in the air, it can continue to cruise for weeks. Moscow has 1420 strategic nuclear warheads, according to 2018 data. Of these, 517 heads are loaded on carrier missiles. The rest of the titles are inactive. In addition, the number of nuclear warheads Washington has is around 1,900. Most of the nuclear warheads, 1,550 of them, are mounted on intercontinental missiles. About 300 nuclear bombs are also designed to be delivered to the target by bombers. We have come to the end of another video. You can like the video to support us. By subscribing, you can easily follow new videos. See you.